lessons, and insights to help you be the hero of your own story. This podcast is brought to you by Reality Smash, a transformational studio that empowers purpose-driven entrepreneurs with disruptive technologies like ChatGPT and virtual reality to generate more revenue and create greater impact. Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
Welcome to a very special series on the Heroes of Reality podcast, all focused around ChatGPT and purpose-driven entrepreneurs that are integrating it into their business. On today's podcast, I have a dear friend of mine. His name is CK Lin. He is a purpose coach and expert in helping successful entrepreneurs finding soul contribution fit. He has a PhD in bioengineering from UCLA and has served as the chief culture officer as a successful tech startup, AI startup, valued at $2 billion, and has a unique blend of scientific, business, and spiritual knowledge. CK's Noble Warrior Method helps successful entrepreneurs discover their purpose and find fulfillment in their lives and business. If you're seeking a greater sense of purpose, CK can guide you on the journey to the summit of your second mountain. Without any further delay, I'd like to welcome my friend CK Lin. Yo!
What's going on, Dylan? Hello,
Hey,
brother. Whoever's watching. Mm-hmm.
Excited to have you on, brother. I'm excited to have you on and chat with you about ChatGPT. Me and you've been diving deep together on a lot of this stuff, so I figured we'd have you on and let's go at it, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So for you right now, what is your take? Like you've had some back and forth on ChatGPT. We even talked a little bit about something that is a part of this podcast that I just announced that was helped created by ChatGPT. Do you want to say what that is?
I'm not sure. Oh, we talked about so many things, so I'm not sure what you're referring to now.
You talked about, well, I was putting your bio together, and I was putting your information, gonna announce it live on here, and then you said thanks ChatGPT.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So a big part of my use case with
Yeah.
ChatGPT is shoring up the copywriting specifically.
Yeah.
I'm someone who's really good at coming up with big ideas. That's my strong suit, right? My strong suit is coming up with frameworks and knowing when to use what framework very, very easily. I'm an expert in that. However, I do have shortcomings as well. My shortcomings are grammar, spelling, segues, things like that. So ChatGPT has been very useful to help me shore up my weaknesses and then allow me to double down on my strength.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It almost feels like a co-pilot when it comes to writing and creations, where like it's your spirit, your soul, your essence, your feelings, your thoughts, but it helps you reframe it and pitch it back to you, almost like something to springboard off of. And
Yep, 1,000%. One of the things that I deeply believe in is feedback loops, right? How can we have faster feedback loop? Now, faster feedback loop could be talking to your prospects more, talking to your committed colleagues more, talking to your friends more, talking to your coaches more, or listening to, so faster feedback loop, right? Now you have a automated bot who's available to provide that feedback loop for you all the time. Now, here's the thing. ChatGPT isn't very smart today. It certainly don't know what's going on inside your brain, right? So it's going to give you feedback and just consider it as external data points, but it's not always correct. And in fact, often is wrong. But even in the wrongness of the presentation or the data that's given back to you, is still valuable feedback, because you're like, it doesn't quite land. Why doesn't it land? I don't like this. I like this other thing, right? So you can then use that to help you calibrate, the exact message that you want it to do.
What's interesting about that is we are creatures of feedback. We are social, right? So we have this need to, it's very difficult to tell a comedy set, not in front of a crowd. And it's not perfect. It's not going to perfectly mimic the human part of it. But there's something about being able to go into this cave with just you and ChatGPT and be able to stay on point and have that back and forth dialogue and go and be able to dive into it. One of the things that I thought was like super interesting with it when it said, okay, make it for a text message and use emojis. And that's when my blind was like, oh my God, it started applying emojis and like, we're gonna
Hmm.
do it, thumbs up, or whatever else is going on.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, it went from like robotic speech and that what they call it, kind of like a generative feel to it, where it feels automated, to this. I don't know if I could tell the difference between a
Yep.
human sending this and a bot sending this. Have you found that line blur at all?
Yep.
Have you been using
Yeah.
it?
So last night, right before I went to sleep, I actually listened to Joe Rogan and Lex Freeman talking about this in
Hmm.
this their latest episode, and then they spend a good chunk of time talking about this. Um, I'll summarize Lex Freeman what he said. He said the engine was already there, but what's unique about GPT 3 or 3.5 and very soon 4 is the interpretation of it, the linguistic understanding of it, as in the not just here is the answer, spit it back out, Wikipedia style. It's the inferences of it. Now
Mm,
the software can infer like beginning, middle, end. This is the context. This is the subject. This is the content. I think what's the peripheral things around it, and that's
mm,
the unique thing. And to your point, right now it still feels very artificial, and often it makes up things. I'll give you a quick example. I
sure.
was asking ChatGPT to give me some quotes from people who practice martial arts, but also use the mountain as a metaphor to illustrate some principles. And then, the quote right away, Bruce Lee said, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I'm Chinese. So I know that quote did not come from Bruce Lee. I'm like, you lied. But it states in such a
It's
absolute
so
certainty.
yeah,
So if
yeah,
you don't know that, then you're just like, oh yeah, Bruce Lee said that quote.
yeah, dude.
It's not true at all. So anyway,
But
point.
that's the
Mhm.
internet though, right? Like, I mean, on your point, like to bring it to your point, what you're talking about is that like oftentimes like there's been so many misattributed quotes to Abraham Lincoln. Like there's a whole bunch of them online that's now it's a online trope that, oh, Abraham Lincoln said this thing, and it's just not. So I think part of the thing, it got its own bullshit from
Mm.
the internet, and so now it's got a little bit of the human bullshit in it, you know?
So yes and no. Yes,
Uh,
there's source, but there's also ChatGPT itself, because the way it's designed, it would just that's why the latest update is about we improve the factualness of its response, right? That's why, because I'm sure a lot of people complain just how much bullshit the response was, and it spoke with certainty. People are like, is it true?
it's
Is it not true? Yeah.
Dude, it's the confidence, man. I went to go get like windshield wipers because we had this huge like storm rain that just came into Long Beach and stuff, and I was not prepared at all. And so I was at the auto shop, and I was like, "Well, I wonder what size window blades I need for my car." And I put it in. It says you need this size, and I was like, "Oh, well, clearly I need this size." It was not true at all. It completely lied, but it said it with such confidence, and
Hmm.
there was no like, "Well, let me look at 3 or 4 Google websites." I think that is the gap, right? It's like how can you verify that what it's saying is actually true versus it's just saying it with absolute like this is the answer, right? It's
Yep.
like don't know.
So that's why. Um, Let me segue to a different conversation now, because to
Yeah.
me, it's extremely valuable as a feedback, as a sounding board, as like brainstorming mechanism, right? But to use it as a reliable source for accurate answers, I don't think it's there yet at all. So
Mm,
don't search for anything medical, legal, anything like that. Like for the accuracy of it, because we're not there yet. But it's
mm,
great for creative brainstorming, idea generations, refinement of your ideas, or checking of like grammar and these type of you know mechanical type things.
mm. So it's better to really use it for the creativity piece, but then you want to get some sort of human eye on fact checking and like a human editor, which is odd because it seems like it should be the other way around for AI, right? It seems like the creative piece is where the human should own and rule, and the like by the books and the facts should be by the AI.
Well, I mean, the way I see the creative process would be lot, more data and then the
Mhm.
discernment of the human to help you, discern what is it that you really want to say. And then from there. So I'm not outsourcing the creativity to ChatGPT. I'm outsourcing the idea generations. Because it's AI, it can 10x, 100x different angles from different things. And often, here again, bringing back my own use case, right? I said, give me 10 ideas of this headline, or 10 ideas of this product, or this 10 ideas of how to serve this type of people. Often they repeat
Yeah.
this, but I can look for, okay, so nuanced idea, there are slight differences, and I can augment what I already think about. So I think for me, the way my use case and your use case is slightly different,
Yeah.
because you're much more like, let's go, right? So so you would ask it to spit something out, and you would just kind of run with that.
Yeah.
For me, I'm more like, let me think about what I know, write everything down, and then put it in ChatGPT, and then see what it gives back to me, is to augment what I already have. Kind of
Mm.
that's my use case for the most part.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you have so much knowledge and information. I know with working with you, you have a ton of information and frameworks and systems and theories and just data that you being able to render it down into the system and then work through those processes. I know we've had some back and forth where it's like you, me, and ChatGPT, and we're all co-creating together. And we're okay, what's the process? What do you got? What's your insight? Take it, drop it into the system, have it pop back out, and then kind of massage it, look at it, and use the human eye to kind of say, okay, what are the patterns that we see that are valuable to us that we see, and then take that and shove it back into the system. So it's almost like this, it's almost like a beaker to mix in ideas.
Yep.
You drop in two pieces into the edges and you just watch what unfolds.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. I
yeah,
mean, if now that I'm thinking about it,
yeah.
there's the single user use case and there's
Mhm.
multi-user use case, right? The way I see it, I actually prefer the, you know, let's say me and you plus ChatGPT, because now we
Yeah,
can say, let's try that idea. Boom. We don't
yeah,
need to like sit there for 15 minutes trying to brainstorm something. ChatGPT will give us 20 ideas.
yeah,
And then we can, refine it. Like, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like this. And then talk about it amongst ourselves, find the signal, and then try the idea again. So that the experimental, at least theoretical experiments, become
yeah.
so much faster with this
Yeah.
particular tool.
Yeah, I mean, so you like the Chat GPT three-way, right?
That's
So
right.
it's like, so it's you, me,
The
and Chat
menage a
GPT.
trois with
Yeah, yeah.
ChatGPT.
Menage a Chat GPT. And so what you're saying is, and I totally agree. What's interesting about that is that I almost feel like sometimes when you're writing, and especially when you're co-writing with people, is that you don't know who needs to take the wheel and drive. And so you have one person who's kind of trying to drive on one side, and another person, and then usually you have to have one person that's has their hands on the steering when they're driving, and they're taking information in, and then they're steering the steering wheel where you need to go, right? So sometimes when you have two co-writers at the same time, it's a difficult process to be able to find that dance back and forth. Either we're both on our own documents, but sometimes when you're on top of each other's like Word documents, there's some collaboration, some fighting. But if it's not, when it becomes you, me, and ChatGPT, and we're working together in a three-way situation, me and you are kind of co-creating. We throw it inside the system, it mixes and comes out, and we're both kind of both contributing at the same time. And I feel like that's a bit of that benefit, is that
Hmm.
neither one of us has to do the processing of the output. We just kind of take the feedback and are almost like or two co-directors of the
Yep.
output.
I would also say this though. You can't have two blind people and then I have ChatGPT be the the seeing eye to drive that conversation. Not yet. As I said
Mm-hmm.
earlier, it's still a augmented channel for input, right?
Mm-hmm.
But someone needs to have a clear vision of where this thing is going. And then you and I, we have enough mental acuity to say, all right, Dylan wants to drive, let him drive, right? It's the flow. We allow each other to take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
We collaborate well together, that way. But let's say if two people have really strong ideas and are butting heads, ChatGPT is gonna help to guide that direction per se. So one person needs to have a vision, like, hey, this is the vision, and here is the barrier that we're trying to solve right now. Let's actually use ChatGPT again as a way to add additional data points to help nuance, the articulation of this idea, or the rebuttal, or the objections, or whatever the thing.
Yeah, I could see that as well. And you said something before, I also want to touch on. You talk about finding the signal, right? There's this kind of guttural intuition that we have that I think you're speaking to, that you're looking for the output that resonates with you. And when you find one of those lines that lands, whether it's overcoming objections or finding a key statement or a paragraph or a sentence that really lands, there's a feeling in us that's almost like a ooh, like that. Is that what you're
Mhm.
talking about when you say signal?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. I would say, how do you know when you find that signal is, um, yeah, that certainty, that's that obviousness, that groundedness, that obviousness, like exactly this is what I'm trying to say. Because a lot of times, myself included, I don't know about you, but myself included, that there's things that I want to say, but that I say so many words around it, and ChatGPT is able to help me articulate what is it that I'm trying to say. So, for example,
Mm,
right, I have two frameworks that I operate from. One is the Nine Peaks framework. The other one's the Introspectra framework. And then I was reconciling in my mind, how do I have them fit together? So the more articulation, the description ChatGPT helped me have, the more I can say, all right, so now tell me, how do they fit together? And ChatGPT was able to, again, not solve it for me, but actually just give me data like, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, okay, great. And now I can use metaphors and articulations, descriptions as a way to, really crystallize how these two frameworks come together.
mm. Yeah. So which it's a reflection. Say, okay, I'm living by these frameworks, but you know how to live them, but the communication to it is difficult sometimes. So you
Hmm.
can basically word vomit into ChatGPT
That's right.
all of the stuff and say, okay, great. Can you can you break it down for me? Can you put it
That's
in
right.
bullet points? Can you explain it to me like I'm five? I saw a really great example. I was showing a gentleman who was 88 years old yesterday. I was at his house, and we were playing with the Chat GPT and put in, explain to me quantum physics, right? And it broke it down. And I was like, explain it to me like I'm five. And it started explaining to us like, oh, there's a red ball and a blue ball. And you put these, and that's what I think is incredible, is the ability to take concepts that to us, we get the concepts, but we have a difficulty being concise with them. I do think
Yeah.
it's an amazing value.
Yeah. I actually heard this use case. I haven't done this yet personally,
Mhm.
this specific use case, but I've done some similar. So the specific use case is this particular human, a very, very smart, intelligent human. Um, her domain of expertise is marketing, but she wanted to understand cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. So it's like, explain this concept to me like I'm five. And now she's like, oh, after all these years, now I get it. Right? How can you
Mm.
explain something simple but not simpler? So ChatGPT is really good with that, and you can also personalize it, like in Snoop Dogg's voice, or in Alex Hormozy's voice, or in Neil deGrasse Tyson's voice, and it can emulate the voice, the linguistic ability really, really well. So
That is pretty cool too. I do like that, the being able to break it down into a certain voice or a resonation. Say, okay, I'm an expert in, let's just say, virtual reality, right? And that's a topic. Can you explain blockchain in the way that someone in virtuality would understand it, or whatever it might be? So
yep,
you can find that vein. Okay, what do I understand, and can you explain it in a way that makes sense? Because
that's
it's
right,
very difficult to try to describe what a color is to someone who's colorblind,
correct,
right? And so if you can find that relation
yep.
and it can communicate, it's a very cool assistant educator.
Part of what it takes, part of what it means to be a expert communicator is you meet people where they're at. Let's
Hmm.
say if I'm speaking to Dylan, if I can speak in terms of virtual reality metaphors and concepts and articulations, I'm meeting him where his consciousness level is at, right? Then I have more of his listening. But let's say if I'm a quantum physics physicist, I'm speaking to you only in terms of quantum physics, references, authorities, metaphors. It's very, Dylan may have attention for maybe however long, half an hour, 2 hours, But beyond that, he's like, oh man, this is so exhausting. I don't want to hear this anymore. Right. So ChatGPT is great to help people to communicate in such a way that it meet people where they're at.
That's a really interesting point too. And one of the parts is in terms of communication, especially when it comes to say selling or in that, is you want the person that you're speaking to feel understood, right?
Hmm.
You're speaking to not for you to be heard and you to be recognized and you to be validated, but for you to speak to them. So I know your pains, I know your fears, I know your hopes, I know your dreams, I know what you're struggling with, I know these things. And what's interesting about the communication with ChatGPT is it actually has a really interesting knowledge base around understanding humans' motivations and insights and fears and worries and concerns. And so, I had someone that was selling a product in the marijuana business to people that own marijuana stores, and in the back and forth dialogue between him going, okay, well, what would be some of your objections that you would have around this? What are some things you'd like to see out of my product? What would like to do? And there's this back and forth with it, and so that's really interesting that the psychology of it understanding us almost better than we understand ourselves.
Well, I'll actually double click on the last statement.
Okay.
Almost as good as, or almost better than the way
Yeah.
we understand ourselves. Know that this is a language model
Mhm.
tapping into GPT-3, right?
Mhm.
Know that it lies. So I would say, yes, I do use it for, let's say, avatar research or objection handling, or like what are some of the ways, again, to help me think about these things. But I don't for a second think that ChatGPT is or will replace actual conversations with human beings. It helps for me to prepare for it, but it's like a sparring partner, right? Don't think for a second your sparring partner is going to be your actual opponent in the middle of an octagon or the dojo, the ring, on the street. Like this is good practice, but
Mhm.
it's not going to replace it. Not yet, anyway.
Totally agree. And at the same point, there's this whole thing of I've noticed that there's this back and forth that normally happens with this communication where it's like, well, it's not going to replace me. It's not going to be better than this person. It's not. And I don't think it necessarily has to. I think it has to be better than the other option, right? The other option is what do you have? You got to go find a person and have that conversation, or you got to talk to yourself in a mirror, right? There's that. I think it's kind of the halfway house between actual communications and just and you talked about a feedback loop, a sounding board,
Yep.
a place to practice that's not just you and it's
Yep.
not necessarily other people.
Yep.
It's like this in between area that kind of gets you ready, but then you can say, okay, you know, ChatGPT told me to write these jokes, they might be funny, and so I'm gonna, but you
Yep.
don't know unless you actually go and try to deliver it on a real audience.
Actually, on that note, I was in the same night, last
Yeah.
night, I
Uh-huh.
was listening to Joe Rogan and Lex Freeman. I was also
Uh-huh.
listening to Joe Rogan and Louis C.K.
Okay.
And they talk about this very point exactly. And I thought that was a really interesting discussion between Louis C.K. and Joe Rogan, because both of them understand that when you're trying to find an idea of, pushing an edge, find what's funny around this particular topic, this very controversial topic, the only way that what's landing, what's not landing, is with a live audience. The live audience interaction is going to help you find, like, this is the edge, this is the lever you can push to create the laugh, which ultimately is what they're interested in, right? So similarly with ChatGPT ultimately is a servant. It's going to do what you tell it to do. If you tell him or it that one
Him.
plus one equals to three, it's going to articulate, yes, one plus one equals three, and here's why. It won't argue with you. There is
Yeah.
no feedback. So it's not actual, it's not factual. But again, you're trying on an interesting frame based
Mhm.
on these snippets of ideas that you have. You're just trying it on. But my point is, the way to get actual signal back is do all the preparation, think about your narratives, whatever highlight points you have, whatever teaching points you want to teach, and then try it out in live with humans so you can actually see how it's landing, how it's not.
100%. There's this point I want to make about this that I think is something that is unexpected that you're talking about that I want to iterate. But right before that, I do want to announce, just to let everybody know, that I am hosting an event at the end of February, February 28th. If you're a coach and you want to use this inside your business, you can go to chatgptevents.com to go sign up. It is a 3-day, all-day workshop that's going to teach you all of the things that I've been learning and deep diving into the space. So if you want a fast, quick, expedited route to the top of getting to the master level of ChatGPT user, go ahead and go to chatgptevents.com to sign up. To bring it
Awesome.
back there.
Yeah. No. Let me just actually double click on that note.
Yeah.
I've been really nerding out. I'm a coach.
Yeah.
I'm a purpose coach.
Mhm.
I'm a really fucking awesome purpose coach, right? And
You are.
the one of the people that I go to nerd out about ChatGPT is Mr. Dylan Watkins. And we're
Hey.
really pushing the use case of how can we use ChatGPT specifically for coaches, specifically for people that want to make a difference with other human beings. And we talk about all kinds of different use cases for your own self introspection, for for the purpose of building a coaching business, right? So for those of you that's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to spend X dollars to do this 3-day workshop. I'm telling you, Dylan is one of the authority in terms of using ChatGPT for coaches.
It's been an incredible tool, and just working with you, and I've worked with a number of people on it, to the a level of speed and the time that you save to be able to do stuff. It's an absolute game changer. It's like, imagine not working with the internet and then having the internet. It's that same quantum level jump into the space, and it's been awesome to be able to do that with you.
But what I want to say also as well, and this is another conversation I had earlier today.
Mhm.
In the hands of an amateur, ChatGPT is mediocre.
Yeah.
In the hands of an expert, ChatGPT makes magic happen. So it's not just, oh, this is awesome. Let me just DIY. Let me play with it myself. If you don't know how to use it, if you don't know how to enter the proper prompts,
Yeah.
if you don't know how to actually use it, you're not gonna get as much or as many mileage as you could. So my point, friends, if you're watching this, is to let Dylan Watkins teach you some of the secret ways that you can use it specifically for the coaches out there.
Yeah, it's like magic. It's like modern day magic spells, right? If you know how to cast the right spell, you can literally make magic happen. And to your point on what you can do with it is, I think one of the things that we're making is we're almost making this little individual world of our own creation, right? That you're inside this right now. Me and you are connecting over Zoom and or the internet. We're having this back and forth dialogue, and we're co-creating this with us and the people watching and all that fun stuff. But I think what ChatGPT does is it allows you to have this little microcosm of a world that you can play in and really be able to get back and forth data. It's like the entire world's intelligence. Well, the internet was supposed to be that, and it got filled up with all of these SEO practices and people trying to hook you and get into it. But chat cuts out all of that fluff. And now you've created your own little mini verse that you can play in and sandbox in until you can figure out your stuff out and then take that into the actual reality.
So since you mentioned Miniverse,
Mhm.
I have the Matrix Dojo as my background, right? So
Oh,
here's a metaphor. For those of you who have watched The Matrix, there was a scene where Neo gets downloaded all these programs and he wakes up and said, I know Kung Fu, right after one night. So imagine ChatGPT as that Kung Fu session, right? Actually, no, let me qualify this. ChatGPT with Dylan Watkins is like going to the Matrix Dojo with Morpheus and you come out and you're like, I know Kung Fu. That, my friend, is the metaphor I want to give you.
well, thank you. Take the red pill or the blue pill. Do you want to go farther down the ChatGPT hole? It's incredible, though. It really has. I mean, I've taken it, I've integrated to my technology, up and running super deep on it. And yeah, it's been super fun to get into it. And what I've noticed about it, I think I saw an article come out that says it is the fastest growing application of all times. I think there was something like 100 million users in 2 months or 3 months since its launch.
It's 100 million users now.
Yeah, yeah. It went from
Wow.
1 million users in 6 days to, I want to say, let me look this up right now. I want to say that it's noted as the fastest growing app of all times. And yeah, it was, yep, 100 million users in just over 2 months.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised
Yeah.
because it does everything. And another thing that's really, really good for may not be necessarily for coaches, but just a
Mhm.
general use case. It is amazing at writing letters.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It is amazing at writing letters. So for someone like me,
Yeah.
like my emails are like 2 to 3 sentences long, right? So there's no like, "Hi, how are you?" Niceties on top and also nicety in the bottom. Like I'm just like, here's the thing that you want, go, right? That's my use case of emails. But for, let's say, if you're speaking to a government agency or your landlord or your property management company or whoever, they need a lot of nicety, of volume, right? And plus, like the grammatically correct thing and, 3 bullet points. ChatGPT, like I need this, spit it out like that. It's amazing.
I had a client that I was working with, and it was the Christmas time. And what happened was I wanted to send them a little Christmas love. So I put in the context of, what we were working with them on, the mission that they had. And I said, I want you to put this into a poem like it was a Christmas carol. And it kicked out a beautiful, beautiful poem. And I just sent them it as a little thank you, a little Christmas spirit to, here you go. And they loved it. They thought it was amazing, and they're going to use it in their own marketing material. So if you really
Great.
put some attention into it and go, okay, well, it's a Christmas time, and here's what you're about. Ready, set, go. Give me a poem. It was pretty awesome.
So let's jam on that idea for a second,
Sure.
right? Because part of being a coach is, what is your brand,
Hmm.
right? What's your flavor? So my brand is martial arts, warrior spirit, right? Warrior sage, differentiated mind of your inner saboteurs and your inner sage and all these things. So what creative ways could I actually give to my audience, the
Hmm.
people who are paying attention to me, who may be martial artists, who may be ayahuasca practitioners, people like that. And I'm speaking in sort of the secret language that only they get, wink, wink, right?
Hmm.
And that other people may not. So ChatGPT is gonna be great in helping you like think about like, oh, what about saying in this rapper's name or that celebrity's name, this thought leader's tone of voice or whatever. I think it's great.
Well, and that's a really good use case too. It's okay. Here's who I am. This is what I believe, and this is what I'm about, and this is a message. This is what my clients are into, and this is what they're about, and this is what they have. Put together something based upon those two interest points, right? And that's another amazing use case. What you're talking about is, who are you and what do you represent? What do you stand for? Because really, in business, I mean, as we know this, at least one of the thoughts I have around this is, business people, entrepreneurs are modern day heroes. They are of service to the community. They are standing for something. In order to be a hero or an entrepreneur in the space, you have to serve a people, right? Which means you have a group of people that you're really into. Now, if you can have this messaging that are really communicated outwards, and you can get clear on it, ChatGPT helps you define and come up with maybe neat and cool and nifty ideas around the topic. It was just recently my birthday, and CK, you're like, well, what, are you going to hang out with some friends? Are you going to do something? It's a big day. Get together with some friends. And it was funny. Inside of ChatGPT, I put in, well, I'm into these types of topics, right? I'm into, cutting edge technologies. I'm into psychedelics. I'm into personal growth. I'm going to come up with 10 fun birthday ideas that I could have and do. One of them was a psychedelic personal growth retreat, by the way. I just thought that was amazing. So it's really interesting on those topics to come up with interesting, innovative ideas based upon your interest and the interest of the other people.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So we talked about messaging,
Yeah.
right? How do you find clarity in what is it that you want to say? So
Mhm.
ChatGPT helped you with that. ChatGPT also gives you creative ways to express that, right? In a poem, in a rap, in a video script, in whatever different ways to articulate it. We can also do it on different platforms. How would I articulate the same message on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, whatever the thing is? And it's very useful in that way, because each platform had different limitations of characters, and it just does a lot of things that we could all do in terms of expressing who. Now that we know who we are, how do we express it to meet people where they're at in different stages of awareness? I can get into that if you want to, but like really basically slicing and dicing the messaging, like
Mhm.
this idea, so it lands the way you want it to land.
Yeah. Well, and that's a really good point. You go, okay, I'm this type of person. If you understand yourself, your values, what you mean, what you do, right? And then you look at your avatar and say, okay, well, they're this type of person. And you're talking about the stages of unawareness, right? Because I'd love for you to dive into that and open that up. But if you're speaking to someone, depending on their level of awareness of their problem, and if you're the solution and all that stuff, you're going to speak to them differently. So how does ChatGPT, in that sense, help you speak to your avatar depending on the stage your avatar is in?
Yeah. So there are 5 stages of awareness. For those of you who take notes, it's actually very useful to use it as a framework to help you think about your media presence, right? So starting from unaware, these people are not even aware of the problems, the solutions. They're just living life as it is, right? Very, very superficially, unaware. And then they become problem aware. So in my case, my avatars, they're like, oh, I have these symptoms of burnout, suicidal thoughts, right? Away from pain, or away towards pleasure, like, I want more purpose, more fulfillment, more joy. So problem aware. They're now looking at the symptoms of their problems. And the next stage after that would be solution aware, right? Solutions, that actively now seeking solutions to solve these symptoms. So they may be actively seeking or experimenting with meditation, visualization, ayahuasca journeys, or whatever the thing, martial arts or CrossFit, as a way to solve what the symptoms they have. Solution aware. After that is product aware. I now know what's my problem, what's my ideal outcome, the barriers I'm trying to overcome. I now need to fit, like, what's CK's services products, what's Dylan Watkins' service product, and I can find that problem and solution fit, right? So solution, product aware, and then after that is most aware. I now have acquired CK's 9 peaks framework and the interspectral framework. I now know it very well. I'm using it to produce results in my life. I now know Dylan Watkins' framework, his tools, his genius. I'm now using it to help me 10x my coaching business, right? It's all good. So there are 5 stages. So very, very long way to answer the question. If you're unclear about how to speak to such a prospect in those awareness, you can then use ChatGPT as a way to, like, hey, if you're in the product aware space, what kind of questions would you ask? How can I really serve you? What kind of objections may you have? And then you can, again, go back and forth to refine, what is it that you wanted to say to people in those segments.
Yeah, that's fantastic because you're talking about it. Because, for example, a lot of people, like, if you're unaware of there's a problem, you're not going to do anything. If you're aware of the problem, you don't know how to get the solution. That's another step. There's another solution, but they don't know that you're the solution. So you got to speak to them at different times. Like, I know, like, for myself, there's been times where I didn't really care about a certain book that someone recommended until I had that problem, and the book was the answer, right? And then it hooks you at that moment, that time, that need. I know with a lot of times with this AI is the people are only really aware when they realize that their job's on the line, or they're going to get replaced, or something's going to happen. Like, oh crap, I got to figure out this thing, or else I become irrelevant. It goes from a vitamin or a toy to like a pain pill. The same way that COVID, right? COVID turned virtual meetings from a nicety to an absolute problem solver. The problem solver is you cannot meet in person, or otherwise you will die, right? Or you're going to get someone killed because you'll accidentally get it. You don't know you'll have it, and you'll give it to somebody else. Oh, great. Well, what do we do there? Now the entire world shifted to where we're having these online communications and meetings because it is a problem that we're all trying to solve. And I feel like the same way that's true that AI is here now is there's now this problem that we're all trying to solve. The problem we're trying to solve is how do we now interact with it in our lives? How does it change who we are and what we do in this world? And how do we use it to really level up ourselves and level up our businesses? And that's really what the whole ChatGPT event is about, is how do you take this, integrate it into your life, and really get up and going with it. What it reminded me of, and I'll turn back to you, is like I was jogging outside my house the other day, right? And I was running. I look to my left and I just see this truck, and I just start to try to outrun this truck, right? And I'm running and the truck just goes and flies right by me. And I'm like, that's what's going to be like when other people don't adopt this technology, and you're going to try to outrace a truck with your feet. This AI, because you're going to be the person in the steering wheel driving the AI, right? With your foot on the gas, just taking off. And the other person just going to be trying to use their bare feet to just catch up. You just can't do it. It makes logical sense from this perspective of running and shoes, but it doesn't until you really get into use the system, ChatGPT. You don't really understand the power it has.
Yeah, I would say there's a concept called the early movers advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think just like the early days of the internet, in the beginning, people are gonna shit on it, like, it's a toy, it's not very useful. What can it do? So that's the early days of the internet, early days of this particular ChatGPT product, and it's only one out of many AI products coming out. By the way, there's Google, Facebook, obviously Baidu, and all these different internet entities in China. They're gonna come out with their own offerings. So it's a game changer in that this whole categories of AI tools are coming out as a way to support our lives. So in the beginning, I don't. Maybe we can chat GPT here right now. So in the beginning, there's gonna be uninformed optimism, and then there's gonna be informed pessimism, and then there's like different phases that you go through, right? So right now, a lot of people are worrying about their jobs, rightfully so, but I am not the you know the sky's gonna fall kind of a person. I'm the how do we turn this crisis into an opportunity person, as Dylan said. Like, so therefore, let's double down and really understand its capabilities, its limitations, and use it for our own intentions, our own purpose, our own mission. Because the way I see it is a huge blessing to expedite our creative process, to help us be even more creative. I'll say this one last thing. I told my friend who earlier similar conversations, I told him that it's going to be a bifurcation of people. One set of people is going to use these AI tools to help them become even more themselves, even more on brand, even more unique, even more differentiated, even more human, even more creative, even more innovative, right? That's going to be one set of people. And there's going to be another set of people who is going to be lazy and just say, ChatGPT, give me this. Oh, great. I don't have this. I don't have to do my homework. I just need to do the bare minimum. And that's what I see, where the world is going. And I hope those of you who are watching are more the first group of people, right? How can I use this tool not to replace me, but make me more of me? That's what I'm excited about.
Absolutely, man. It's so true. This thought, right? That if you look, just like take a step back and you just kind of look at how we got here, we're monkeys on a rock floating through space, right? Kind of thing. And you realize that like this entire time, life has been playing the game, and the game they play is evolution, right? The evolution of there's these moments in time where some of life dies off, and there's other moments where it survives and thrives. And we come from a long history of animals that have survived and been able to get here. The only thing is for billions of years it was played the normal way, evolution. But humans hack the system. They hack the system with technology. We use technology to artificially advance our evolution, to bring us from the middle of the food chain to rise to the top of the food chain, all the way to being able to like send a man on the moon and machines to Mars and all that jazz. But the point you're talking about is really, really, really interesting, because if you look at it, some of us get this technology and we use it to be lazy, where even the weakest among us, we're not worried about getting eaten by an animal in the woods, right? Because we have this technology. But some of us take it and then use it to not only just survive at the bare minimum, but to use it to rise and thrive to our ultimate potential. And the people that figure out how to do that use it, that recognize that this is a moment of time, the same way, like if you go back and there was like blacksmiths, then they were like working on horseshoes back in the day and the Ford car came out. A lot of them said, oh, my job's still here. They stayed the same. Fast forward 10 years in the future, like 330 million jobs based on, I think, Zippy Reporter is going to say that they're all going to be replaced by AI. And so there's going to be a graveyard of entrepreneurs and businesses that just did not adapt and evolve with the technology because they just kind of rested on their laurels. So like right now is this moment in time to say, are you going to jump on this train, on this wagon? Are you going to evolve with the technology and rise? Or are you just going to get replaced? And that's really why the whole point is, how do we empower people to be the best forms in themselves? And that brings it back to the event, the ChatGPTevents.com at the end of February. If you want to figure out how to quickly do that, learn from other people, and really get around a group of individuals that all recognize this moment and want to thrive together, you can sign up for the event. So that's ChatGPT Events. And then just a perfect segue. CK, is there anything else you'd like to let people know about this or about your own purpose-driven coaching business?
Yeah, similar to what Dylan was talking about, just in terms of the evolution of humans. Yes, we're tool makers, tool users. To me, the best tools that we have and the lens we view reality is our consciousness, our brain, right? If you don't have the right alignment between who you are, what you really want, what you stand for, and the words, the behaviors, the services that you bring to the world, it's a path, a formula for a life of quiet desperation, as Henry Thoreau would say. But if you know how to align who you are, uniquely are as a human being, living a human life, and what is it that you do, that's, to me, the secret to a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. So if that's something that you want, I work with people who are successful entrepreneurs and who are seeking more purpose, more joy, more meaning, more fulfillment. And I have a series of tools that I can really support you to achieve that, soul contribution fit. So reach out to me, chatwithck.com. Happy to, have a conversation with you, see if that would, it's a fit.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Yeah. And I've worked with CK on a number of things. He's an amazing coach. He was my coach for a while, and he is an incredible human. So I can't recommend enough. I also know that he's kind of like the Bruce Lee in the space of, like, he takes on all these different technologies, whether it's AI or anything else, and he integrates it and he just kind of keeps the best to him. So if that sounds like a fit to you and you're interested, go to cklin.com. And CK, it's been so incredible having you on the show, brother. I always love seeing you, my friend. So have a blessed and beautiful day, my friend. And I'll see you on the other side.
good luck, guys.
Take care now. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes of Reality podcast. Are you interested in using disruptive technology like ChatGPT AI and virtual reality to help your business to generate more revenue and create greater impact? If so, go to heroesofreality.com to take the Heroes Quiz to unlock your potential as a purpose-driven entrepreneur.